Hey, welcome back. I wanted to show you what I did to get started. So there's Frankenstein's monster. Here's Dracula, and they look pretty cool. And I was going to let the black primer set for several hours and then go with the Zenithal, but my white would not come out. I changed nozzles and everything, so I had to wait, and I got the white to match the black. This sprays so well and even, and I really recommend this stuff, and I am not sponsored in any way. But let me show you on some other miniatures. You should be able to see really well with this. So if you notice from underneath it is almost completely black. And then from the top it's almost completely white if you're directly above. This is from Shadows of Amsterdam board game. Thought I would do these as well to test some stuff out, but I tried to get directly above them as at the very edge of the spray with the white, just to lightly coat it a couple of times, and it's to simulate the sun at its zenith, so zenithal hitting. So what that will do is if I painted all of this the same color, these recesses will naturally be a little darker, casting some shadow on itself from the sun hitting it, and the top would be a little lighter, shinier. So it should add depth without adding a lot of extra work. So I'm going to give that a try. Hopefully it will help. So I'll be painting these shortly after I work on the Horrified miniatures. So if you look, he is almost all shadow from beneath, like that. And then as you get closer to the top, it gets lighter. So I just went a flat black and then a flat white. And then of course his back, his shoulders block most of his body. So you got a little bit on this leg that's extended backwards and a little bit on this jacket waist. Still haven't figured out exactly what colors I want to do all his suit, because I have seen multiple. I've seen a solid black, I've seen gray with black, I've seen blue with black, I've seen I even seen one where it was green to match like his skin, and the Wolfman was solid brown. And I think that was probably for early color movies. If the Beastman was in a brown jacket, then it would look more fur-like. It would, they wouldn't have to do his whole body. Not sure. I had to figure that out. I'll look up some examples. And then I was running out of white and black, and I was getting low on red, and I come across this. So I want to try this out also. And once again, I am not sponsored, but I came across this, and oops, the whole box came open. That's okay. The box was not doing a good job of holding the paints in, so I thought I would try this out. These paints are made in the US, and a small sale, like 10 or 12% off, but they were about half the price of Vallejo, which I do really like the Vallejo, but yeah, I'm just gonna have to destroy this box. It did not hold up well in the shipping. And they come with droppers. This is Micro Mark. So I'm going to try these out on these miniatures. And I'll keep you updated some as I go. And once again, I'm not sponsored in any way. I bought this all with my own money. But this popped up, and I'd never really heard of Micro Mark. And I looked up, and some people had said they really liked it, had good results with it. It even comes with some thinner if you want to thin it out. But it's got the droppers. It said they've been in business for 96 years. And it also came with this light skin tone. Now I may do a dab of white or yellow to use this on Dracula. I don't want his skin white, and I don't want it looking normal. I want it looking a little sickly. This is old school vampires that don't go out in the sun. I'll also say it recommended, they've got some primer that you can paint on. And I was tempted with that, but I wanted to do the Zenithal, and I'd already done these in the black, and I really like this. And I don't do any airbrushing. I don't plan on doing any airbrushing anytime soon. I don't paint enough. I don't have the facilities. So I wanted to get this effect, so I went with this primer instead of their primer. This is not my normal baking parchment paper, but this should work. Got some paper towels cut up in this tray. I've got them really damp, and I'm gonna shove this in there, and you can feel the water, you can feel the wetness without it seeking through. So I may have to cut that a little bit shorter, but that'll be my wet palette to help keep my paints wet, especially heat running, lights on. This paint might start to dry out. You want to keep it wet for as long as you can. For such a small miniature, it has decent quality details there on his vest and on his brow and nose, so I don't want to lose all that. But yeah, this is going to be tricky because I'm having trouble seeing with my eyes. I zoomed in with my camera there just to look on the screen, and I'm going to start off, I think, I'm going to try just this light skin tone straight up with no mixing. And I want to I'll put 2 drops there just to see if I do decide to do some mixing, but may not need to. May have to get a different brush. This one's starting to want to fray at the tip, but let's see how this does. Well, it definitely paints on very smooth. Wow. A better steady hand than mine, and a better brush perhaps, and it would look amazing. I may have to try a smaller brush. Since the detailing is so small, I think I'm going to leave the skin as it is. I will at the end try to put a couple of black dots in for the pupils. Do not have his vest perfectly symmetrical. I might try to touch that up after I paint his clothes, but I wanted to show you the red paint. It's wanting to pull a lot, and it's not coating perfectly well. It's already creating some shadows, which I wouldn't mind, except for when you look at it in person, you can see it's actually, you can see the primer underneath. It's not coating. And so I got my bigger brush, and I really went with all of the curves and tried to cover all that. So I think after that dries, I'll probably come back and do another thin coat on top of that. I don't want to lose all that detail, but I do want to cover up, because you can see the paint is just, the red paint is just sliding off. It's looking good. It's already looking good, but it's not wanting to coat that inside of that cape. And of course, between the legs there's a little bit, and I'm having trouble getting that to, getting paint to stick there, even with my small brush here in the pan. Was able to smooth out the paint a little bit more on the red inside of his cape, and the eyes don't look too bad. I'm afraid to do much more. I will disfigure the face and mess it up since it's so small. And I've seen pictures of him with a white bow tie and with the red bow tie, and I might try the red, and then if it doesn't look good, I'll just have to paint over it with the white, which will be difficult. So maybe I don't know. I would like for it to show up a little better though. I need to get up in that corner there just a little better. This is supposed to be a gray. They call it medium gray. And it looks more like a brown stone to me. But that's fine for the base. I'm going to try to do the edge black, make it really stand out. And maybe I'll put a few details in there, make it look like he's walking down the streets, the cobblestone streets or something. But that is not, so far that is by far my biggest complaint, which is not a big deal, but that is, to me, that is not gray. Maybe after it finishes drying, but it looks more like a dirt brown. Yeah, you can see I took 1 drop of white and rubbed it into the dried up black, and look at that gray compared. So I'm trying to make it look like stone work. Don't know if it's going to work, so I may end up just painting the whole thing gray, mixing the white and the black. I purposely didn't try to not give it a perfectly smooth coat so that maybe it would look like dirty stone. That doesn't look too bad. And then I did the edge black right around the edge. So yeah, I think I'm going to call this one done. I'm not going to attempt the bow tie. So we'll let that dry so we can seal it. I don't even think I want to worry about trying to do any wash, just because I kind of like the way it looks now. I don't want that red to get too dark. I want it to look really bright. And I don't want to get any of it on the white vest. So yeah, I think I'm just going to leave him like that. I'm going to try the yellow ochre and the grass green. Go with the deep green. And so far, I've done this. And I even got up in his mouth and his eyes, got some gills. And I'll probably have to touch this back up after I do the green. But that gives me an idea and a starting point. And it's even just that looks so cool. I like it. I am very happy with how this one is turning out. So I tried to get all the little scales and fins and gills and spines to be that ochre color. And then the darker green everywhere else, and even tried to get the fins on the back of his head. Might have messed up just a little bit, but it looks really good. So I will paint the base up, and then I think later I will do just a basic dark black wash, or maybe a dark brown, not sure. But yeah, I think that will really look cool. I like this one. I mixed some of my leftover ochre, yellow ochre, with olive, and it got this really cool swampy seaweed looking green. So I did the base in that. That looks pretty cool. I like that. Really liking the results of this one. I got the monster sheets out for some reference, but and I was planning on doing this purpley color. I like that. But I noticed this is blue, this was red, and this was purple. And I almost did his base in green, but I'm like, well, you've got this brown with the Wolfman. Then you got this sickly green with the Mummy, and you got the green with Frankenstein. And I guess I could do that in the swampy color, but I just decided to go ahead and do those in the color that they are in the game. And so there we go. I will do a little bit of a shadowing wash on him later. I'm going to let that fully dry, probably the rest of the day, maybe tomorrow. And then I went back and did Dracula's base in red. I did not go with the dark red, I just went with the red to match the cape. But at least it's red now, like the sheet. So I've seen some reference photos of the original Wolfman transferred to color. So what I did is I painted his shirt the brown, and I painted his fur brown with the flat brown. Then I came back over his hair and his palms and the top of his feet with the rust oxide to give it a little bit of a contrast, some light color. Tried to dot his nose black and his eyes white just to kind of match this, but the minis are so small it's hard to get it to look great. But overall, it doesn't look too bad. May have to give that a wash and try to keep the wash away from his eyes. Now the back was very flat, and this brown paint does not want to coat that. So I'm going to give it another thin coat and then paint the base up. For the Invisible Man, I took some images from, combined different images I saw and just kind of improvised. So this on the wrappings and on the robe like fluffy part on the inside, let's see, that is called, I think, just fluff. Buff, there we go, buff. So it is a yellowish white, and then I did white for the scarf, and I gave him a little handkerchief there, and then I gave him some fluffy white slippers. They did okay. Now I just did black on the pants. I did a basic gray. I'll have to touch it up a little bit. Did the base in blue. And the robe turned out pretty well. Now I may do a light wash on the back of the robe and maybe the top of his head, but I don't really want to mess up the front, so I'll probably just do a little wash on the purple robe, maybe a tiny bit on his head, and then down the back. But if I can touch up a little bit of the base on top, I'm happy with that. Decided to just go with the brown shirt and then a black jacket, black pants, black boots. I did the dark green on the skin, and then I did a little bit of, tried to do a little bit of dry brushing where I do a real thin coat with the lighter olive on top of the darker green just to give it some shadowing. And this figure is so dark that the wash may not show up well. It might do a little bit on the shirt and on the skin. So if I can get a good thin wash, then I might give him a wash. But we'll do the base. He's pretty much done. So I just finished an initial coat of the mummy with the buff color. And see, I missed a little bit right there. And it is a yellowish tannish white, and I'm going to just do the whole thing, and then I'll go back and put in some darker colors in the recesses and then do some highlighting colors. And let me see if I can get there's a little bit too much paint right there. There we go. Then I'll show you what I did here. So I'm going to do his base one more time, and I think we'll call him done, except for, like I said, I'll do a little bit of shadowing. I'm having trouble getting her gown all the way to the bottom. It doesn't want to do well. And I try to do some of the ground around it, but it's just not looking well. You can't see that with her gown and with the base, so I may just extend the gown a little bit. And it's looking pretty good. I used some of that same buff, and I tried to very, very, very lightly do a dry brush across her face and her hands. You can see on this hand. But it got a little too much on her face, so I had to go back and then dry brush on some of the darker green in a couple places, especially like the top of her head. but I think it's turning out pretty well. There's still a few spots coming up on her dress there, so let me just try to focus in on what I'm doing down here at the table. And we'll do a little painting here on camera, since I haven't done much of that yet. Just put another drop in there. And so, one thing I have to keep telling myself, so I will tell you guys, this is not perfect. I'm not a professional, I'm not getting paid, but this is so much better than what it was. This is for my enjoyment. This is for me to do something fun and have fun. And especially with colors like white and some of these light colors, just do several thin coats. So I did one pretty thick coat at the beginning all over everywhere and just spread it out the best I could. I've already done 2 or 3 coats. So now I'm going to go back, especially here. Just going to hit the edge of where the dress is touching the ground. And if it's not perfect, it doesn't matter, because she's moving and it's flowing. So it does not have to be perfect. There we go. That is already looking better. Now that spot, you can probably see it on camera. Right here, there is a decent little gap between her dress and the edge, but it just doesn't look good with the 3 colors. The dress, the ground, and then the base when you have that such a thin stripe. So I'm just going to extend the gown until it's almost to the edge. Yep. And then anything else, I'll try to just do the base green, not do a 3rd color. And this kind of work, it does take a little while. It's a little frustrating for me. My eyes are starting to go bad and this brush is starting to fray just a little bit. And so I know I could do a little better, but my hands getting tired, my eyes are getting tired, and I'm just not getting quite the results I wanted right there. And that's sometimes frustrating. And it looks like that is on the side, but it's not. That's on the part that is between her dress and the base. So I'll probably come back and barely put a little green there, just to even some of those up. So now that I've kind of touched that up, what we're going to do, okay, I've already got 2 or 3 coats in some places, two in like everywhere, but 3 in some places. So I'm going to start here at the shoulder, the very top where the light would definitely hit, and just come down the shoulder and the top of the arm. And then right there to the elbow. And then just the top of the arm. I'm not going to worry about the underneath. I've already got a couple coats under there. Now if you see a spot where it looks like you can see some primer sticking out, then sure, go ahead and dab a little paint on it. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it. Because then, if it is just a little thin, it should look like a shadow. Hopefully. Alright, I'm going to come over here to the other shoulder. So this is where the sunlight is hitting. So we will just put the paint right there on the shoulder and then pull it down and thin it as we go. Okay? So right here, coming off the shoulder, there's a seam. So I'll just put some paint on that. And then here's a big seam. So I'm going to put the paint there on the edge of the seam. It's not really a seam, it's like the bundle of cloth, but it's sticking out, it's bulging up. So we want to make sure that we hit that with several layers to show that it is catching light. And you can already see like a stripe in the camera. So that means we are getting color distinction. So now let's just slightly blend that in. It doesn't look as bad in person as it does on camera, which is funny. But now there you go. It looks like it's catching light. You have some natural shadows and colors. I'm already out of white again. I'm going to put a little bit more. And I'll leave the camera running while I finish this last bit. Now we're going to come right through here, the collar and the chest, and then we're going to pull the paint to the side. Okay, and then if you notice, there's another gathering of fabric right here, right down that side. Can you see it? So I'm going to run the brush down that. I'm going to try to pile up a little bit of paint on that, especially since this white is so light colored and thin. And then there's another bundle right here, so let's hit that a lot. Another bundle right there. Now I'm going to come back and spread that paint out a little bit. I'm going to pull some to the front, and I'm going to go on this ridge and pull some to the back. Now right here, there's two, it looks like two ridges with a shadow in the middle. So I'm going to try to paint the tops of those where the fabric is bundling and leave that in the middle and not pull paint into it. So I just want to touch the top of that fold there and leave the in-between, that darker color. And this white, it does pretty good considering how I'm painting white on top of black primer with a brush that's about had it. I think it's looking pretty good. Alright, and then where the gown is gathering on the floor, there's a ridge in the model. So put a lot of paint there on the top of that. Come back down here. There we go. And we should start to see, even though it's white, we should start to see some natural shadows and color differences. See if you can see that on camera. Let me zoom in a little bit. Just focused on trying to paint the tops of the folds of the fabric. There you go. Now see that right there, it looks almost dirty, but it's because it's between two folds and those folds are grabbing so much light that it looks dark. So that's looking pretty good. So I think I will do the base of those one more time, and then we'll do some more work on the mummy. What I've done here is come in with the olive color, and I've done the face very lightly. Then I've done like some fingertips. I did a spot here in the arm where the raveling looks like it's coming undone. I just picked a spot there on the stomach, the fingers here on this hand, and then like I did those toes, I did the heels, especially this one that's lifted up, just to give it some variety in color and break it up. So I'm going to let that dry, and then we'll come back and do a little work on this. I went with the flesh tone, not the white. I didn't want it super contrasty. And I'm trying to get as little as I can on the brush, and then I'm picking places like the thigh here, and this knee, and the top of the hand there that's sticking out, and the top of this shoulder. And I'm just rubbing a little bit of color on there. Let's see if you can see that on camera. There you go, getting a little discoloration. That's what we want. Just trying to dry brush on in some highlights. Now this one I did not do as great. It looks like there's some wrappings going down the back, but it didn't highlight as well as I would have liked. And then right here on the calf, just throw on a little color. Maybe right there on that shoulder. Just to break up that monotone look. Since this model, this mini, has a lot of lines and detail on the wrappings, but as far as color, you know, there's not a lot going on. I had some leftover brown and some rust, and I did like the base in brown, then I came back with some rust and mixed it in, and then I'm taking just a little bit of this buff color and trying to just every now and then find some places to put some color, so it gets this really weird looking effect. And it almost looks like it actually looks a little better in my opinion in person. It's not as shiny, but it almost looks like it's slightly worn stone. It's hard to get up under the feet there, but since he spawns in the museum, it almost looks like old stone. I like it. It looks really good. I did some highlights in different places, and you can see it pretty good on camera where it's catching the light. Did a little bit on the top of his head there. Down the back, there you go. Added some green here. Added some of that skin tone there and there, and then along the top of the shoulder and arm. So it's not perfect, but that doesn't look too bad. I like it. Looks a lot better than what it started. Now I just got to do the base, and I think I'm going to do the base. It is this weird olive color, similar to the skin. So I'll just get a drop of that and do that. Then we got a different cup here, and I'm going to try to do a wash here with the monster. That way, if it doesn't turn out well, he's easy enough to fix if I don't do well, or if I don't like the way it looks. Got some purified drinking water from my filter, and I'm gonna put a couple drops in there. And then I've got, I don't know if you can see it on the tip of my brush there, the dish soap I use is dye-free, perfume-free, clear soap. So I'm going to put that in here, and that should help add some adhesiveness to it, the paint. And now I'm going to take the black. Now this is usable for I can't think of what I'm trying to say, but the spray paint guns, and so it's already pretty thin, so this should thin up really nice, and you can see it is making a nice runny soup. And this should work pretty good, but let's see. So I'm just going to paint it starting on the black jacket and on top of his head, and we're going to try to help push this paint mixture down the clothes and just let it go where it will, and those bubbles will, as it evaporates, disappear. Hopefully. This should give it a little bit more of a shadowing effect, but we'll see. And then I'll just do right down his shirt. Since he's mostly dark anyway, it won't matter. See if we can add a little bit to the palms of his hands. And I don't want to mess up his face. I'm going to do very, very little down the face. That way if it gets a little bit in the eye sockets, yeah, that looks pretty good. And in the mouth there, and there's a cheekbone. Let me show you real quick. I did pretty good. Got just a little bit in there, just to add a little bit of shadowing. So, I'm going to try to get rid of some of these bubbles that are wanting to act up. Here we go. Let's try Wolfman. Hopefully this won't be too dark, but what I want to do is just gently come in here. Don't need a lot. I'm going to, through his hair, see if I can get the camera to focus. That's too much. Alright. Just do that, then come down his jacket. Don't want that to pull right there. Don't mind if it pulls right here, because that will make more shadows where he's hunched over. But I don't want it to pull on top of the sleeve, so I'm going to dab off some water so that it will pick it up easier. Alright, let's see how that looks. See if it's noticeably different at all. And that is so weird. It is glistening so much that on camera it looks like there's a big spot there, but there's nothing in person. So maybe it's working a little bit. I might have it too diluted, not sure, because this is already nice and thin paint. I'm going to let that dry and take a look at it and see what I think. But what I may have to do is lighten up the brown and just do some highlights, and that might do better. I should have done his hair black and then done the brown over top of it. That probably would have done better. It seems to have done okay on his face, but I can't really tell anything on the brown. And with the Wolfman, I couldn't really tell anything. So I just did a few highlights like on his shoulders and on his hair, on his fur, on the tops of his feet, back of his hands, here on his shoulders. I just did a few highlights, and I think I'm going to leave it at that. I don't think I'm going to try and do a wash with the new paints, trying to figure it out. They're already thin, and so I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I'm going to go ahead and take these out into the garage and put a coat of this on it, let them set overnight, and put another coat on it, and that should be good enough.